for
of a lot of American people who have not benefited, or they don't think, they can't feel the benefits, the changes that this kind of exchange has brought to them. For instance, academic relationship is going to impact these people today and in the future.
First of all, yeah, of course, manufacturing jobs have been lost to not just to China, first to Japan, then to Korea, then in large numbers to China, later to Vietnam. There's a major shift, of course, from in the United States from being a manufacturing country to being a country extraordinary in services and beyond. It's not true that there's massive unpopularity for having Chinese students in the United States. Tones in international relationship get set at the top. In 2016, 60 to 70% of Americans had a very positive view of China. By the end of the first Trump administration, it was 80% negative. And that tone was set at the top by President Trump with his first trade war, very unsuccessful war, just like the second, and set by growing fears by others as well, mostly on the geopolitical front, not so much on the economic or business front, not about bringing jobs back from China, which is a mythical category of options. But if, leadership really matters.
And very latest news on that front is China and the United States has a latest round of dialogue or consultation, however you call it, in Paris. It didn't collapse, but it didn't have any breakthrough. But the two sides, from what I understand, the two sides had some consensus. They reached some consensus on some issues. And they also talked about, having mechanisms to discuss trade and economic relations, such as setting up potentially a board of trade or a board of investment. So yes, how do you look at these? Yeah, how do you look at the trajectory of this relationship? Are there changes in the air, perhaps? The administration, the Trump administration, seeing trade relationship with China slightly differently, given the development of everything from domestic politics to what's happening in the Middle East?
I do see a trajectory toward a more professional and more predictable relationship. In some sense, there was in the Biden administration compared to the first Trump administration. It also often painted China as a potential, competitor, and in some realms a potential threat. And yet the relationship for both sides was highly professional and increasingly predictable compared to what it had been under the first Trump administration. I think after the first year of the second Trump administration, you will begin to see a retreat from the volatility and the rapid, the tariff chaos of that first year, first and foremost, because the Supreme Court is highly limited what the president can do in the realm of tariffs. And you see increasingly signs of willingness to cooperate. The premier tier of NVIDIA AI chips now are approved for export to China. There's rules that had required one American entity, the Bureau of Industry and Security, to investigate companies with ownership ties on these so-called blacklists. That has been suspended. China has kept its word to purchase, I think it was 12 million tons of soybeans after the trade truce. But of course, it wouldn't have had to do that if the normal economic relationship that had existed beforehand had been allowed to continue. It was the American side that started this trade war, and it is the American side that now has to retreat from it. But I do see there's a greater sense in the administration to try to stabilize the relationship. It's not as if the United States is without problems elsewhere, after all.
The concerns among some people, among some politicians and some ordinary citizens is about security, because of all the connectivity. I'm just relaying what they're talking about. So is there a way to conduct technological cooperation, collaboration, while containing the potential fallout in terms of security? Because nowadays it is true, everything is interconnected, and honestly the other way around, it's also true. Everybody using an Apple phone is potentially exposed to security concerns from the outside. Yeah, so absolutely. Have you thought about that? How can these kind of concerns be contained? How can these kind of potential risks be contained while the benefits be reaped?
That's an excellent question, and it is something you saw this in the debate over TikTok in the United States, and that personal information might go back to China through TikTok, which does not appear to be the case, but nevertheless was a fear by many. I don't know why we're more fearful of TikTok than we should be of Facebook or of Google or of any of these. I don't trust any of these people, but we have to deal with them in terms of personal information.
Well, the ideological difference, right? The ideological difference is a given.
But let's be frank. There may be. There's certainly a possibility that electronic products, and there are so many from China, might have some capacity. This was a big debate in the Huawei case when the Huawei was trying to get into the United States, that they had some backdoor of their technology. But the Americans, the American government, but also American companies, are very good at cybersecurity. They're very good. They're actually the best at cyber espionage. there have to be means of vetting the technology, making sure that there are controls over it, so that it wouldn't. Why should the world know, Liu Xin, if you run through a red light in Beijing when you're driving? The Chinese government may know, but the rest of the world doesn't need to know this. The fear can get in the way of progress. There are certainly workarounds for any of these concerns, but it reflects more than anything else the paranoia of both sides. So if you look at the future of managing trade and investment relations, any future deals basically rely on rebuilding trust between both sides.
Looking forward, however, China is determined to hold on to its plan, and it's laid the kind of blueprint for the next 5 years, which is the 15th five-year plan. Altogether, 6 areas, 109 major projects covering 6 areas, new quality productive forces, basically, the most futuristic, advanced productivity and the infrastructure modernization, public well-being, including higher education, green and low carbon transition, food and energy security, so on and so forth. So a lot of these projects, when China name these projects, that means we will build them, we'll work on them, and according to the record, pretty much we will have them done by the end of the 5 years. That's just how we do things. How much opportunity is there for the United States, to tap into these projects, and what kind of loss would it be if trust is not built back fast enough between the two sides?
Well, the sad thing is you should try to compare different plans. Compare the Made in China 2025 plan to the Trump administration's 2025 Project 2025. The first one out of Beijing was forward-looking with agendas just like the new 5-year plan around technological upgrading, strategic industries, robotics, green energy, aerospace equipment, medical devices, and all of that. And the Trump Project 2025 plan was backward-looking, with looking to address political issues of identity politics and so on. Very, sad way. Planning backward is not a way into the future. However, I should say in the 15th 5-year plan, there are enormous areas of potential cooperation between our two countries in climate, in energy, in sustainability. For example, in power generation, the United States is suffering now, but will suffer a great deal more in power generation in modernizing its power grid. In the U.S., there are, I think, at the moment, less than 8 large-scale transformer manufacturers. They meet only 20% of domestic demand. And China controls 60% of global transformer production capacity. There's enormous America should be having one behind on this, and yet it's an opportunity to take advantage of what rapidly sometimes leap over others to new technologies and take this to another level. Electric vehicles is an area in which China has done that.
Looking ahead from the grassroots level, let's not talk about the politicians at the political level. From grassroots, you're in Shanghai. How is this latest trip engaging with your Chinese counterparts, engaging with the Chinese people, the student, the faculty? What is the feeling you are getting? Does it give you more hope, or do you a slight more worry that this period of rebuilding trust is going to be long, or there is always hope there?
It gives me more hope. I mean, we had a meeting in Beijing, which we convened with senior leaders from major Chinese universities, but bringing in the American joint venture universities, other international joint venture universities, the office heads of all of the American universities in China, each of us with the task of coming up with new ways, not just of keeping things steady state, but advancing our cooperation, student to student, faculty to faculty, research projects. I think it's important to continue to try to innovate in this area because if you leave it to steady state and if you leave the academic decisions to political leaders or bureaucrats who are always afraid of making a mistake, you will fall behind. And our Chinese counterparts, just like the leaders of Harvard and other great American universities, really know that the future is in cooperation if there is to be a happy future between our two countries on the educational front. And so I have found extraordinary cooperation here in China. And I love the seminar that I just had, extraordinary students here asking tough questions, just like they do at home.
One last thing, if I may, and I'm personally very curious about it. How willing are American young people to come to China to study? Because the number dropped to a historic low and never really recovered as far as, at least last time I asked, what is the problem? What has to happen for more American people to come to study in universities?
Well, I think a lot of things have to happen and less insular thinking in the United States. But what killed American university students studying in China was COVID. It's just not possible to come. And the tragedy is it has never rebounded from COVID because after COVID, the political relationship becomes more difficult. It becomes more difficult actually first for Chinese universities to cooperate and then for American universities to cooperate. So that's a problem. But let me give you an example from my own experience. This year, teaching 3 large courses at Harvard about China. One of them is a kind of a 中国通史, a general history of China with a colleague looking at enduring issues of Chinese history. Another one is a large class on the United States and China, the history and present nature of our relationship. And a third one in the Harvard Business School on doing business with China. Mm-hmm. These are this year because of the interest in China, just to my surprise, but to my happiness. And this last summer, we sent more Harvard students to China than we have in memory, even before COVID. Somewhere between 300 and 400 Harvard students went to China. We have a large internship program with Chinese companies and NGOs. Yeah. We started a new summer school taught by Harvard faculty in Shanghai with Fudan University. We had 180 Harvard undergraduates go to China to teach in high schools in China. We have a new language program in Taipei. We are expanding significantly what we're doing in China because we believe that for the long-term future of our own university, that this is really important. And the students, there are many more applicants for any of these positions by the students than we have places.
Great. I'm really happy to hear that. That's really encouraging. And shall I add, you don't have to go to Harvard to come to China. You don't have to go to university to come to China either. You can just go on the plane, make a transit. The visa is much simpler nowadays. So thank you so much, Professor William Kirby. I won't hold you longer. It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It's been my great pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing. As usual, you can follow me on Facebook and X using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team, thank you for watching. You've got The Point. And don't forget to follow us on YouTube at Liu Xin in Beijing.
Facing the unknown is always difficult. In a world in turmoil, it's easy to lose orientation. But when the storms come, we have to see the possibilities, reinvent, find new opportunities, discover a path forward. CGBN, see the difference.
gripped by uncertainty, volatility, and rapid change.
From trade tensions to climate pressures, from AI disruption to economic reinvention, the stakes could not be higher.
In China, Asia needs the world to provide certainty and stability in uncertain times.
As China advances high-quality development, new opportunities emerge in Asia and the world.
And making room for new perspectives. True understanding means the ability to see events from more than one side. I'm Liu Xin, and this is The Point.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the program. Our top stories. The United States presents a 15-point plan to Iran to end the conflict as President Trump insists Tehran badly wants a deal. Iran says the United States is negotiating with itself, but says non-hostile ships will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Panic at the pumps, running out of oil. The Philippines declares a state of emergency as energy supplies dwindle due to the Middle East conflict. And a window on China. Finland's former Prime Minister tells us why the Bao Forum in Asia is a huge opportunity for Europe. Pakistan says it's delivered a 15-point plan to Iran on behalf of the United States, outlining Washington's ceasefire proposal. Pakistan and Turkey are being floated as potential venues for talks. Tehran, however, says it is not engaged in any peace efforts, saying the United States is negotiating with itself. Oil prices have dipped on the news that Iran said non-hostile ships could pass through the Strait of Hormuz.
Has the level of your internal discord reached a point where you are negotiating with yourselves? Our first and last word has been, is, and will be the same from day one. Someone like us will never come to terms with someone like you, neither now nor ever.
Let's talk to our correspondent, Jagriti, in Washington. Jagriti, do we have a clearer understanding of the status of negotiations between the United States and Iran, talks that, of course, President Trump insists are underway?
Yes, and this is all from reporting. We're not getting, as you mentioned, any confirmation from Iran, who's refusing to acknowledge even the receipt of this 15-point plan that, according to reports, has been delivered to the Iranians by Pakistan. What we know, President Trump, before this report was delivered, said that there are 15 points of discussion between Iran and the United States. Number 1, 2, and 3 concerns Iran's nuclear program. And so from reports, we understand that this 15-point plan includes issues such as the dismantling of Iran's nuclear facilities, 3 nuclear sites, suspension of any uranium enrichment and its nuclear program, the curbing of Iran's support for its regional proxies. There's been talk of sanctions relief and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. This is according to reports, broad outline of this 15-point plan, which we can assume is part of, if these discussions are taking place, is going to form a part of the framework of these discussions. Now, what we don't know is if Iran is going to actually take on board this 15-point plan. This is the New York Times, which first reported on the existence of this plan, saying, we don't know if Iran's going to be on board with this. We don't even know if Israel is going to be on board with this. Remember, Israel and the US are coordinating their strikes on Iran. And what we are seeing is questions about what really the US strategy is, because of course we're hearing from the president that negotiations are taking place, but at the same time we've got reports that the US is considering sending thousands of troops into the Middle East, potentially contemplating boots on the ground, even though the US is publicly saying they're not talking about this at this point. But the White House is saying that the president reserves the right to keep all his options open, potentially to take the Strait of Hormuz, according to reports, or potentially to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or even troops to take cargo in that crucial oil hub. These are all reports, of course. Nothing is being confirmed on future plans by the United States. And of course, Iran even refusing to acknowledge that negotiations are taking place. At the same time, the Pentagon is reportedly asking for more money, $200 billion from Congress. And the White House saying that this war is going to continue. Is this a negotiating strategy to try the Iranians to come to the table, or is this just deflection as we potentially enter a new phase in this conflict?
Jagriti, just a very quick thought on Mr. Trump's approval rating falling to a record new low.
Yes, this is a new Ipsos Reuters poll that's showing that the president's approval rating has fallen to 36%. It's a new low in his second term. Compare that to the 47% he enjoyed at the start of his second term. And the reasons for this, according to the poll, are the cost of living and the economy. Rising gas prices since the start of the war has fueled all existing concerns that Americans had about inflation, about the cost of living. And you can see this dissatisfaction more broadly in the fact that Democrats have taken 2 districts in Florida from the Republicans. They're projected to do so. One in a special election, which is a district that includes Mar-a-Lago, the president's own resort. So the midterms are usually a sign of a chance for the electorate to express their dissatisfaction with the ruling with the government. But with this conflict, you can see that again, people citing the economy in multiple polls and the cost of gas as being a real concern. It's a problem for the Republicans as they approach the midterms in November.
Jagriti, thank you. Our correspondent Jagriti Dave in Washington. Well, the International Atomic Energy Agency says it has been informed by Iran that one of its nuclear power stations has been hit. Our correspondent Ehsan Kevani is in the Iranian city of Yazd. Ehsan, what can you tell us about these latest strikes on Iran and the situation at the Bushehr nuclear power station?
Well, daily attacks continue against different targets in different cities across Iran on day 26 of the war. On Tuesday evening, unprecedented double explosions were heard here in Yazd, where the IRGC missile launchers attack Israel almost on a daily basis. The explosion sound and waves were so powerful that they shook the entire city, and residents here in Yazd were really scared. Elsewhere in Bushehr, as you mentioned, near the Persian Gulf, we have reports of a projectile striking the premises of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, says it has received information from Iran regarding the strike. Tehran says the incident caused no financial or technical damage for the facility and resulted in no casualties, adding that the plant's operations continue as usual. Meanwhile, the Russian state nuclear energy company Rosatom, which is the contractor party in Bushehr power plant, says it condemns the attack. The company Rosatom has begun preparations for the third phase of withdrawing Russian personnel from the Bushehr plant, while almost 480 employees of the company currently remaining on the site. But it is expected that more Russian technicians would leave the nuclear plant in the coming days. Jamie.
Ehsan, thank you for that. Our correspondent Kevani in Yazd. Well, more Iranian missiles were fired towards Israel overnight. The Israeli military says it has struck 2 Iranian missile factories in Tehran. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv. Jonathan, what's the situation there, and what has the Israeli Defense Force been saying?
So regarding the situation on the ground, we had 2 sirens here in the Tel Aviv area this morning, and also in various parts around the country. Today, we do not speak of any major hits or casualties. The missiles that were fired, at least to the Tel Aviv area, were cluster missiles, meaning that we did see minor impacts in various places, but with no considerable damage or casualties. This is opposed to yesterday when a missile made landfall here in the Tel Aviv area, creating quite a lot of damage. Regarding the attacks in Iran, what Israel is saying is that it will attack every site belonging to the Iran, whether it's Iranian nuclear program, ballistic program, other military installations. There was no direct comment from Israel regarding the possible attacks on that nuclear facility in Bushehr, which, as was just mentioned, is run jointly by Russian technicians as well. But Israel did say all along the way that it will hit any target belonging to any of Iran's programs, be it the nuclear program, the ballistic program. And for Israel, it is loud and clear when it comes to the negotiations. Every agreement should include at least these 2 components: the complete end to the Iranian nuclear program, complete end to the ballistic program. What Israel is concerned is that the third pillar, the one speaking about assistance to the proxies, that may not be answered in the agreement. But until that happens, Israel is tackling and striking all of the sites in Iran, including those belonging to the Iranian nuclear program, understanding that an agreement, even though it looks quite far at the moment, could still happen at any time, especially when an unexpected president like President Trump. And therefore, Israel is preparing for the possibility that the war may end soon, and therefore it is striking anything it can for the moment.
Jonathan, thank you for that. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv. Well, China says it's working to try to ease the tensions in the Middle East. Those comments follow talks between Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Iranian counterpart.
Hotspot issues should be resolved through dialogue and negotiation rather than using force. Talking is always better than fighting. China hopes all parties will seize every opportunity for peace as soon as possible.
Well, let's bring all of this together. Kanwal Sibal is former Foreign Secretary of India and the former Indian ambassador to Turkey, Egypt, France, and Russia.
It is a terrible situation that the world is in. India has been very badly hit because we have about 10 million people in this area. We have about 40%, 50% of our oil and gas from this region, and we get about 40 billion remittances from this region. Now, if the region gets disturbed because the conflict continues, then we will have a huge problem on our hands, even a bigger problem on our hands than we have at present. The shutting down or disruption of the Strait of Hormuz is affecting us, although our ships are being able to go through, but on a case-by-case basis, on a ship-by-ship basis. So the flow of oil and gas from this region has become problematic. Worse for us the gas facility, the LNG facility in Qatar has been shut down. They have invoked force majeure. The result that we have now to look for supplies from elsewhere. But I think the larger effect of this is on the global economy, because it affects large parts of the global economy in terms of tourism, in terms of aviation, in terms of fertilizers, in terms of export, in terms of logistics. So frankly, this is a very bad situation.
You're an enormously experienced diplomat of so many years standing. Let's talk about the diplomacy. President Trump has alternated between threats and claims of productive talks. I mean, does this reflect coercive diplomacy or strategic inconsistency?
Both. He's not made any bones about the fact that he relishes doing coercive diplomacy. He has actually exercised that diplomacy towards us also by imposing earlier 50% tariffs on us, making us the most tariff country in the world, although India and United States have otherwise a very good relationship and a strategic partnership. He has forced us in the past to stop buying Iranian oil and then Russian oil. And he's exercised his coercive diplomacy vis-a-vis Europe, as you well know, vis-a-vis Great Britain. Currently, he's very annoyed with you. But there's strategic inconsistency too, because he changes his narrative. Sometimes he demands one thing, at other times he demands another thing. Look at, for example, Iran. Earlier, he said that he's not looking for a regime change, but then he said, yes, he has decapitated the leadership, and in effect, he has established a regime change. Then he said, in fact, he cited Israel for having attacked the South Pars oil gas field, and then he himself then threatened that he would attack the energy infrastructure of Iran. Then he said that, the United States doesn't need the Gulf for Hormuz, other countries do, therefore they should send in their warships and open the channel. And now he says that this must be opened, and he's willing to do X, Y, and Z to force it open. In fact, he's threatening to send 4,000 or 5,000 Marines from the 81st Airborne Brigade to achieve that target. So there's a lot of strategic inconsistency. And finally, he said, I don't recognize the new Ayatollah, but then he says he and the Ayatollah are going to manage in future the state of Hormuz. So one really does not know. But this is part of the deal. Escalate to de-escalate, keep other parties on hooks about what he may do, create chaos, and then say, I'm a peacemaker. Frankly, it's very, very difficult to understand the thinking and strategy of the US president.
At least 9 people have been killed in overnight Israeli airstrikes on South Lebanon and Beirut suburbs. Lebanese state media reported casualties across the south of the country, including Sidon. Southern Beirut has been targeted a number of times during the conflict and has been largely emptied of residents. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez has accused Benjamin Netanyahu of seeking to cause the same level of damage on Lebanon that was inflicted on Gaza. He also warned that the nightmare of Iraq could repeat itself if this Middle East conflict continues. Well, nearly 90% of the oil and gas that passes through the Strait of Hormuz is bound for Asia, so its effective closure means the region is experiencing shortages and rocketing prices. The Philippines has become the first country to declare a state of energy emergency. Our correspondent Chris Crismondo reports.
The Philippines is now under a state of national energy emergency as surging global oil prices, driven by escalating conflict in the Middle East, tighten their grip on this fuel import-dependent economy. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made the declaration, promising a flow of oil soon. At the center of the crisis is a growing concern over both affordability and supply of fuel. Prices have skyrocketed, reaching the 100 peso per liter mark for the first time in the country's history. That is being felt across the economy, from transport fares to food prices. placing additional strain on households already grappling with rising costs. In response, the government has rolled out emergency measures aimed at reducing consumption. A 4-day workweek for public sector employees is now in effect, designed to cut fuel use and ease congestion. Early data suggests that traffic along EDSA, Metro Manila's busiest road, has dropped by around 8%. But officials acknowledge that the decline is not just policy-driven. It also reflects people actively limiting travel to cope with higher fuel prices. On the streets, protests are beginning to build. Transport groups and labor organizations are warning off worsening fuel shortages and calling for immediate relief, as well as clearer plans to secure fuel supply. That urgency is now pushing the government toward more controversial options. For the first time in 5 years, the Philippines is considering and beginning purchases of oil from Russia, with Russian tankers reportedly arriving in the region. That move signals a significant shift in energy policy as Manila looks to diversify its sources despite ongoing sanctions and geopolitical tensions. Officials argue the priority is clear: ensure supply and prevent further economic disruption. But the decision carries diplomatic implications, particularly as the Philippines balances its relationships with Western allies. Across Southeast Asia, other economies are facing similar pressures. High dependence on imported fuel, volatile global prices, and rising public frustration. Governments from Indonesia to Thailand are implementing a mix of subsidies, conservation measures, and alternative sourcing strategies to stabilize their supply. But in the Philippines, the declaration of a state of national energy emergency highlights just how quickly the situation has escalated.
You're watching CGTN, still ahead. Full of Eastern promise, Finland's former Prime Minister tells us why the Bao Forum in Asia is a vital opportunity for Europe.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? A unicorn company? Make sense of it all with the business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us. And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. The United States presents a 15-point plan to Iran to end the conflict, as President Trump insists Tehran badly wants a deal. Iran says the United States is negotiating with itself, but says non-hostile ships will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And panic at the pumps, running out of oil. The Philippines declares a state of emergency as energy supplies dwindle due to this Middle East conflict. Malaysia is the center of gravity when it comes to artificial intelligence development. That's according to a new report by the Bao Forum for Asia, delivered at the forum's current gathering in China's Hainan province. It says the region has pulled ahead of the United States and Europe thanks to its massive digital population and supportive government policies. Well, Esko Aho is a former Prime Minister of Finland. He's been telling our correspondent, Dai Kai, about the importance of the Bauer Forum in this increasingly turbulent world.
Nice to meet you, Mr.
Good to meet you.
When we met Mr. Esko Aho, he had just finished yet another interview, one of many on a busy day.
How do you keep up the energy, though? I'm trying to walk at least 5-6 kilometers every day and to sleep well. I'm sitting here.
Shortly after, we sat down for a formal discussion.
It's good to have you with us, Mr. Esko Aho.
Thank you so much.
Now, with growing divisions over global governance rules, do you see Asia offering European countries a way to diversify risks in such an uncertain world?
I think when looking at Europe and Asia, there are a lot of similarities. We are technology-oriented. We have a lot of common interests to keep world trade to be fair and open. But then we have also differences. It's very important that you in Asia understand the European mindset and vice versa. For us, it's very important to understand the Asian mindset. In order to do good business or to be good in politics, you have to be able to recognize these differences.
He also has a high level of trust in Nordic countries toward Asia.
The level of trust is very high in all Nordic countries. That is something which is making a difference in Europe. But I can say that even globally, it's very difficult to identify any other part of the globe where the level of trust between people is so high as it is in the Nordic region.
How do you see the role the forum has been playing in building consensus, especially at a time like this?
It has been like a window to see what's going on in China. For foreigners, it's a great opportunity to understand internal processes in China. This is a place for dialogue, so that we foreigners, we feel that when we are coming here, we are able to tell from our perspective how do we see the world, global trends and developments, and in that way, let's say to learn to work together, which is so important in the future, because I cannot see that we are able to solve the problems of the world without having collaboration. We need collaboration and common rules.
That's very considerate.
Yeah.
We grabbed some cool drinks after the talk. So what's your impression of this tropical town? You've been here many times already.
Yeah, this is another type of China. So I have visited Beijing, Shanghai quite often, but this is totally different type of environment and atmosphere as well. Tomorrow's
For Esko Aho, Boao goes beyond the job on the busy global calendar. It's where partnerships are reimagined and where dialogue still has a chance. Dakai.
Estonia and Latvia say 2 stray Ukrainian drones have entered their airspace, one hitting a power station. This follows a day of Russian strikes across Ukraine, targeting energy structure. Ukraine says 1,000 drones were launched in the attacks that left at least one person dead. There's someone that Russia's Baltic Sea oil port was also hit by Ukrainian missiles. Mette Frederiksen has resigned as Denmark's Prime Minister after Tuesday's general election. Her Social Democratic Party won less than 22% of the vote, their worst performance in a century. However, her left-wing bloc enjoys a slim lead over the right-wing bloc. Frederiksen's resignation now formally sets the way for coalition talks in motion. Meta has lost its first court case on child safety. A New Mexico jury found the tech company knew its products were harmful for children and lied to social media users about the safety of its platforms. Meta has been ordered to pay $375 million. The owner of Instagram and WhatsApp says it plans to appeal, with similar legal battles still playing out. Beijing is calling for Japan to investigate and punish a military officer arrested on suspicion of breaking into China's embassy in Tokyo. The suspect allegedly scaled the embassy wall and threatened to kill staff with a knife. He was disarmed by embassy officials. Tokyo has called the incident regrettable and has increased security measures. For the first time in 20 years, hundreds of staff at Australia's public broadcaster are on strike over pay and the possibility of artificial intelligence replacing jobs. The walkout disrupted live news coverage. The unions argue the latest pay offer falls short of rising living costs. But ABC insists their deal is fair. The headlines again. The United States presents a 15-point plan to Iran to end the conflict as President Trump insists Tehran badly wants a deal. Iran says the United States is negotiating with itself, but says a non-hostile vessel will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And panic at the pumps, running out of oil. The Philippines declares a state of emergency as energy supplies dwindle due to the Middle East conflict. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
Customer in general, compared to the rest of the world, or our portfolio is younger, very technology oriented, and willing to experiment.
Universities should prepare them better for it. One easy way, for example, of universities preparing them is to sponsor internships.
Innovation is the key, especially in China, where consumers are captivated by cutting-edge technology and truly intelligent electronic vehicles. That's the view of Ola Kalinius, chairman of the board of management of Mercedes-Benz Group. Speaking with me over the weekend, he underscored the company's resolve to move forward with courage and boldness, and competing and cooperating with Chinese partners while embracing the opportunities of China's 15th five-year plan. We see China's transformation in the auto industry and also its tremendous guts for innovation, of course. And you have been partners with Chinese counterparts for quite some time. So what do you think is the current stage of taking each other's innovation as the center and be able to make the best out of it?
So the great thing with the tech ecosystem here in China is that you can work with both the big giants that you know from your smartphone world, whether it's ByteDance or Tencent or Alibaba, all of those companies. So everything that you want and you're used to in your smartphone ecosystem, should that stop at the car? Of course not. The car needs to be a smart cockpit, a convenient smart cockpit. It's almost like a butler that serves you. But there's also a very broad ecosystem of medium-sized or smaller tech companies. About 10 years ago, we got in contact with a brand new startup with a small but very dedicated because the Chinese customer in general, compared to the rest of the world or our portfolio, is younger, very technology-oriented, and willing to experiment.
On the other hand, the Chinese automakers are also going to Germany and other European countries as well. There are manufacturing centers of Chinese automakers in some European countries. So how do you see that interesting balance of cooperation and competition as the Chinese premier articulated during his speech as well?
The auto industry is a truly global industry. And if you look at supply chains and the supply networks around the world, I think in a modern top-level car like the S-Class or any of the cars that we produce here, you have all 5 continents in them. So maybe it's one of the most global industries at all. And when I hear about entrepreneurs seeking their fortune in a different market, I think back to one of our founding fathers, Gottlieb Daimler. He invented the car 140 years ago in 1886. 2 years later, in 1888, he already set up shop in the United States. And imagine the speed at which the world moved back then from 2 years of invention to then go across the pond, I think is a very impressive thing. But it's the mindset of an entrepreneur. So the fact that also Chinese entrepreneurs, next to the biggest car market in the world, China, that they seek their fortune in other places, that's normal. That's how a market economy works.
So what about that competition that is taking place on the European continent already? Obviously, between you and some of your Chinese partners even.
Indeed. And Chinese players, as we have been investing in China and will continue to invest, we have established our bigger operational production footprint here now since more than 20 years. Chinese entrepreneurs are welcome to come to Europe and also set up shop. So this is just a natural extension of entrepreneurship.
You talk about your entrepreneurship of the company at the very beginning, but many argue you are the entrepreneur of your company right now because you have to lead a gigantic company forward at a time of grand transition. So how would you, I'm very interested in, tip that balance about strategic boldness and brand name vis-a-vis steady growth and also to make sure there will be steady transition. How does that work?
The auto industry and our company is going through a fundamental transformation. It's a 1 in 100 years event. So in a way, we have to take the original invention of our founding fathers and we have to now reinvent it. In a situation like that, when an industry goes through fundamental transformation or disruption, you have to find that inner Gottlieb Daimler or Carl Benz and become the original entrepreneur again. More speed, more agility, willingness to take risk. Of course, Mercedes-Benz is a big company, 156,000 people around the world, so you got to get your organization with you. But what I'm telling management or everybody that is working in the company right now, we're back to day one. And we're now going and reinventing the product towards zero emission, towards an intelligent machine. Everybody on each level of the company has to be his or her own CEO,
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, let's not forget that it was the wife of Carl Benz, who was the first chief marketing officer of the auto industry. His invention at the beginning, nobody understood it. It wasn't so known. So his wife took his car and drove it 120 kilometers from Mannheim to Pforzheim, and it became a sensation and everybody heard about it. So she was brave. And that, I think, is the message here in entrepreneurship. Now is the time to be brave, to be bold, to invest, and be agile.
Talking about being brave and being bold, I have a lot of strength already feeling just 2 words out of it. Yet, there are a lot of policy changes. Some are for the benefits of giving some breathing ground for a company like yours for the transformation. However, others also argue this kind of green tariff may not necessarily be for the ultimate health of companies like yours. What is your take? How do you discuss with the policymakers about the pace, about the rhythm?
So going back to what Premier Lee said, I think made a very strong statement. China is open for business. And we want companies to come to China. We want also companies to export to China. In fact, he was talking about setting up 100 different forums, import-export forums. So if China continues to open up the market and make it easier for us either to invest or through operations from overseas access the market, of course, that would be important for us. But I think long-term, that is going to strengthen China. Let's not be naive. Over the last several years, there have been more protectionistic movements around the world in different places. Speaking as somebody who has the privilege of leading a global company, you don't want protectionism. You want opening up. And maybe the markets, and if China chooses to go this way and maybe be a contrarian in a more protectionistic environment to open up, I believe that will be a long-term benefit. In terms of the transformation to zero emission, I'm absolutely convinced that we will end up one day with all zero emission vehicles.
What is the timetable for that?
Well, here is the thing. In the 150 different markets that we serve, and we have a footprint where we have been global for a long, long time, you find out that the timetable is almost different in every single country. So during that period, and this is going to be a 10, 15, 20-year process, something like that, we need flexibility. We are a world-class leader on high-tech electrified combustion vehicles, and the next generation of those are also being developed. Even though the main thrust is into new energy vehicles, the battery electric vehicle. So the customer has a choice. And what works for China in 2026 maybe is different in Germany and yet again different in the United States. So for us, we have to be flexible. It isn't all of the above for the customer for the foreseeable future. And policymaking also needs to recognize the pace of market change, because some things that are obvious if you want to switch over to zero emission is you need charging infrastructure, you need the right incentive structure for taxes, you need the right cost for the energy carrier, and of course on an electric car it's then the electricity. So all these factors, they influence the market. And if a regulator, a policymaker tries to force the market too soon or away from the natural market equilibrium, that is when you have market distortion that we're giving to policymakers around the world.
On the other hand, we have seen some other complexities going on in the world. For example, geopolitics, conflicts. For example, right now everybody's looking at the Middle East, and it has tremendous impact on energy, on security, on logistics, and the list goes on. Every global companies that I talked to, they told me they're likely to be impacted somewhat. So I wonder, from such a global company like yours, how would these more complicated factors, which you would not be able to control, obviously, how would you work them in to the already existing heavy agenda that you are adjusting about?
Whereas the world has always been a dynamic place.
Well, philosophically speaking,
with
yes.
things happening and going up and down, it is true to say that the last few years have been particularly challenging. I mean, who would have thought 5 or 6 years ago that a virus would put a stop to the whole world for a few months and then disrupt supply chains fundamentally?
And trust.
Yeah, and trust in a positive way. We have had a lot of practice with external disruptions of several kinds in the last 5 years, and I think maybe we have made our system a little bit more resilient. But you said it, some things are simply out of our control. If you're then a business person, okay, you look at your functionality, you look at your resilience, maybe you have to go through a period that's then a tougher patch, maybe there is some restrictions in supply of something. If indeed that happens, then you deal with it. But the foundation for dealing with that in a calm and calculated way and not make yourself crazy is to have a solid company, a solid balance sheet, so that financially you're robust to take on a difficult situation. And in spite of all the task force management, don't forget about what the long-term destination is. We have the technical foundation at Mercedes-Benz, well over 100 years of engineering excellence. We have the financial means to be a long-term thinker, but first and foremost, we have the imagination to invent the car of tomorrow. So I think, yes, that can be stressful, but let's think long-term.
Yeah. Just reference for you, several of the CEOs that I've been talking to, some of them also from Germany, have been telling me their revenue actually has been going up last year out of hard work, and yet the profit margin has been dropping down because of a lot of different complex factors. And they are trying to figure out what is likely to be the timetable for them to come back again, namely having better profit margin. They're thinking about 2027 or even 28, given the latest complexity. What about for Mercedes-Benz? How do you see a more smoother, if you could predict in any way, transition time and for a better prospect?
So as we were presenting our results only about a month ago or a month and a half ago for 2025 in our annual result conference, of course, we talked about all those things that happened in 2025, a shift in the coordinate system, in tariff policies, and other things going on. In spite of that, we were able to produce a very strong free cash flow, which is ultimately, from a financial point of view, the one KPI that counts.
Right.
How much
money
is left in your tiller after you have calculated everything. But what is the time frame? I don't think that the intense competitive situation in China is going to go away anytime soon, so there will be pressure here. Of course, the tariff system, especially for a global company like Mercedes-Benz, it has changed, and we have to accept that now. And there are also other regulatory challenges or other things that you mentioned before that's going on in the world. But what are we doing to address that next to short-term management of external disruptions is investing into innovation, technology, and product. So we have in 25, 26, and 27 on a worldwide basis, 40 new models that are coming. So I think that 26 for us is a year of execution, actually bringing models into the pipeline, build upon that in 27 and 28. So we take, for this financial picture, we take like a midterm view. Yes, we have a solid foundation. Yes, it is a tougher business environment than it was maybe 3 years ago. But we can deal with it, and we want to build ourselves into a stronger position over the next years into the midterm, carried by the product offensive.
Sounds like the 15th five-year plan.
Actually, Mercedes-Benz also has a 5-year plan. We call it the Mercedes-Benz business plan.
Right.
And as I said, when we read about the 15th five-year plan and we looked at ours.
Similarities.
Yeah, on the economic side, a lot of similarities. Yeah.
My final question is about AI, artificial intelligence. We see LLM, and now in China, as you have noticed, talking to your Chinese counterpart, agentic AI has become really the big name now. So, but there are a lot of challenges in between. How do you see the trend of application of AI into your industry, and which area and trends are you observing very closely right now?
The sky is the limit. We started many years ago when AI really came back, the compute power and sensing AI. This is like maybe 15 years ago now, where we started doubling down on AI for automated driving. But there have been so many iterations of what happened there, and with Gen AI coming into the picture about 3 years ago. Yeah. Of course, now the way those algorithms and those software stack works, it's like a human. It's like that's why I call it a thinking machine. But it's not just about automated driving, which is one area where we're investing massively, and that's happening. It's also about the smart cockpit. If you have a Mercedes, you have a Mercedes virtual assistant. you can talk to the car, and that car can more or less do anything for you. And indeed, just to highlight one thing that we have developed here in China, in our partnership with Tsinghua University, in the rear seat entertainment of our vehicles, we now have a multimodal LLM capability, which means you can have several LLMs in the background, and they get invisibly arbitrated for the customer in the car. So whatever answer or action the person needs, the model knows where to find it. So I think what's going on here is nothing less than an intelligence revolution. If we had, back in the 1850s, the industrial revolution kicked off by the steam engine, what we have today is an intelligence revolution. And ultimately, that's going to make an even bigger mark on business.
Sounds wonderful, but related to that, the jobs market, as we have seen, some shaking up already. Your take on that, because many are talking about what about the big companies? What are they going to do as a result of AI?
Every single time there has been some major breakthrough in technology, there are also some dystopian voices that said this will change. I don't know, back in 1850s, we left the field and went into factory. And maybe people thought that there will be mass unemployment. God knows. I don't partake in the dystopian discussion. I realize that we have a tremendous potential productivity gain from AI agents, where they can do, starting with simple repetitive tasks to then more complex tasks already now. So something will happen there. But humanity has always found a way to then redirect the human resources to do something else. So that's going to be my positive take on it.
Very philosophical. I'm seeing a philosopher and certainly a mover and shaker in the field. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're watching World Insight. I'm Tian Wei. The future of today's youth is increasingly shaped by artificial intelligence. In China, the next generation will learn through digital education and certainly artificial intelligence as well, and work in AI-driven industries. Christopher Pisaridis, Nobel laureate and Rigas professor at the London School of Economics, shares how we can adapt through continuous lifelong learning. As a Nobel Prize winner, what do you make of the jobs that people assume might be losing to AI?
Well, before we say that, I think there is an exaggeration of how many jobs will be lost, because people look at the capabilities of AI and they think if AI can do it, therefore work will be dismissed. But in fact, this is not what we're observing. There are many constraints in companies replacing workers. They're treating their workers as their stakeholders, many of them. There are other barriers they have. So we're not seeing much substitution. So although the potential danger is there, that they might be lost, we're not seeing that at all now. And
no, there are a lot of layoffs already, at least in the names of AI that companies had all over the world.
Not many, not many. If you go deeper into what they're doing, the only effects that we are seeing, not very large, but something that it is in the data is coming out now, is job openings for new graduates in some jobs, like jobs that involve report writing, jobs that involve manipulating simple data sets. Workers are not being dismissed after job closures, but what we're seeing is that whereas every year there is a number of jobs that open up for new graduates coming out of universities, now those jobs are fewer than what used to be before AI, especially before the large language models that were launched in November 2022 with ChatGPT, followed by many others. Now, that is a problem, and professions need to be reformed. It's affecting mainly more highly educated people, graduates coming out. I've seen some studies that say more women than men. It's more professions or jobs that women could bigger fractions than men. If you look at the relatively bigger fractions than men, if you look at the whole labor market, but definitely not replacement to the extent that you hear workers fearing. You know, like if you see the media, what they're saying, if they're talking to workers, oh, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my job. That's not the case.
But geographically speaking, you also see the jobs change, the job market in the world. For example, some economies might be very good in providing jobs in the low ends of digitalization, to work on the computer programming. India is one of those examples, and there are other examples. So how do you see the latest change with AI becoming ever more applicable, these geographical changes of the employment scene in the world? What does that mean?
That is really significant. The jobs are changing. There's no doubt that they're changing. It's not 100% of jobs. I would say that it's about 60% in service economies, maybe in non-manufacturing economies might be up to 70%, because many jobs are not affected by AI, like the care sector, the hospitality sector, the restaurant, the hotel sector. People might be making bookings on a tablet or on the internet, but when it comes to performing the job, they're performing it. It's a personal service they're providing. But there are many jobs, definitely more than half the jobs, will be affected in the way they're being done with AI. That's a matter of training. Companies should be doing that training. University or a school should give you a general training to take out the fear of AI and the fear of mathematics or whatever out of students.
Are they doing it?
No, not yet. But they should be doing more. Well, they're doing something, but they should be doing more. Some countries, you mentioned geographical distribution, some countries are pioneers in that. The United Emirates, for example, are doing it, starting from elementary school up. Many others, I know in Britain, they started doing it, many schools, using these techniques at school. And once people come out of their education and take jobs, then the important thing is that those who want to do well in their job, they need to be learning things continually.
Right.
I went to a very interesting session earlier this morning before coming here on intelligent use of technology in manufacturing. Top manufacturers talked there. Every single one who talked said the key to our success are our people. We choose our people well, to be willing to learn how to use AI, and they're using it at work, and we're doing very well. We could not operate without our people.
But what would you say to the students graduated fresh from university?
Never, ever be scared that I will not know how to do it. You can learn how to do it. The most difficult task is to persuade the employer that you are prepared to learn how to do the job and that you will learn how to do the job. Now, you might say, isn't that difficult to do it? Of course it's difficult, but life is difficult, with these big job decisions. You think it's easy to write a book, for example, and yet we do it as academics. Difficult to write your first book, maybe. Once you write your first book, then you know.
So you're arguing the students, the young people should toughen up in a way.
Confident, actually, is a better word. And the only thing I'd say, actually, is that universities should prepare them better for it. And one easy way, for example, of universities preparing them is to sponsor internships. Come to an agreement with some local companies we have students that are interested in the kind of work that you do. They'd like to come and spend 2 weeks with you, 1 month with you, and send them during term time to learn the trade from the inside. Then students become much more confident to get out and fight for that job.
And that is all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know what search World Insight or check out our YouTube channel, follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.
Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the program. Our top stories. The United States presents a 15-point plan to Iran to end the conflict. Tehran says it's not optimistic, but considering the proposal. Iran says the United States has been negotiating with itself, but says non-hostile vessels will be allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Horror headlines: Denmark's Prime Minister resigns after failing to win a clear majority in the general election. Iran has responded cautiously to a peace proposal from Washington. Tehran says it's not optimistic about the 15-point plan. However, diplomatic efforts continue in the region. Pakistan, Turkey and Egypt have all been urging all parties to negotiate to try to end conflict, which has sent oil prices soaring. Tehran has denied engaging in any direct peace negotiations.
Has the level of your internal discord reached the point where you are negotiating with yourselves? Our first and last word has been, is, and will be the same from day one. Someone like us will never come to terms with someone like you, neither now nor ever.
Our correspondent, Jagruti Dave, is in Washington.
What we know, President Trump, before this report was delivered, said that there are 15 points of discussion between Iran and the United States. And number 1, 2, and 3 concerns Iran's nuclear program. And so from reports, we understand that this 15-point plan includes issues such as the dismantling of Iran's nuclear facilities, 3 nuclear sites, suspension of any uranium enrichment and its nuclear program, the curbing of Iran's support for its regional proxies. There's been talk of sanction relief and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. This is according to reports the broad outline of the 15-point plan, which we can assume is part of, if these discussions are taking place, is going to form a part of the framework of these discussions. Now, what we don't know is if Iran is going to actually take on board this 15-point plan. This is the New York Times first reported on the existence of this plan, saying, we don't know if Iran's going to be on board with this. We don't even know if Israel is going to be on board with this. Remember, Israel and the US are coordinating their strikes on Iran. And what we are seeing is questions about what really the US strategy is. Of course, we're hearing from the president that negotiations are taking place, but at the same time, we've got reports that the US is considering sending thousands of troops into the Middle East, potentially contemplating boots on ground, even though the US is publicly saying they're not talking about it at this point. But the White House is saying that the president reserves the right to keep all his options open, potentially to take Strait of Hormuz, according to reports, or potentially to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or even trips to take Karg Island, that crucial oil hub. These are all reports, of course. Nothing is being confirmed on future plans by the United States, and of course, Iran even refusing to acknowledge that negotiations are taking place. At the same time, the Pentagon is reportedly asking for more money, $200 billion from Congress, and the White House saying that this war is going to continue. Is this a negotiating strategy to try to get the Iranians to come to the table, or is this just deflection as we potentially enter a new phase in this conflict?
Jagruti, just a very quick thought on Mr. Trump's approval rating falling to a record new low.
Yes, this is a new Ipsos Reuters poll that's showing that the president's approval rating has fallen to 36%. It's a new low in his second term. Compare that to the 47% he enjoyed at the start of his second term. And the reasons for this, according to the poll, are the cost of living and the economy. Rising gas prices since the start of the war has fueled all existing concerns that Americans had about inflation, about the cost of living. And you can see this dissatisfaction more broadly in the fact that Democrats have taken two districts in Florida from the Republicans. They're projected to do so, one in a special election, which is a district that includes Mar-a-Lago, the president's own resort. So the midterms are usually a sign of, a chance for the electorate to express their dissatisfaction with the ruling, with the government. But this conflict, you can see that, again, people citing the economy in multiple polls and the cost of gas as being a real concern.
The International Atomic Energy Agency says it's been informed by Iran that one of its nuclear power stations has been hit. Our correspondent SN Kevani is in the Iranian city of Yazd.
Well, daily attacks continue against different targets in different cities across Iran on day 26 of the war. On Tuesday evening, unprecedented double explosions were heard here in Yazd, where the IRGC missile launchers attack Israel almost on a daily basis. The explosion sound and waves were so powerful that they shook the entire city, and residents here in Yazd were really scared. Elsewhere in Bushehr, as you mentioned, near the Persian Gulf, we have reports of a projectile striking the premises of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, says it has received information from Iran regarding the strike. Tehran says the incident caused no financial or technical damage for the facility and resulted in no casualties, adding that the plant's operations continue as usual. Meanwhile, the Russian state nuclear energy company Rosatom, which is the contractor party in Bushehr power plant, says it condemns the attack. The company Rosatom has begun preparations for the third phase of withdrawing Russian personnel from the Bushehr plant, while almost 480 employees of the company currently remaining on the site. It is expected that more Russian technicians would leave the nuclear plants in the coming days.
More Iranian missiles were fired towards Israel overnight. The Israeli military says it has struck 2 Iranian missile factories in Tehran. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv.
So regarding the situation on the ground, we had 2 sirens here in the Tel Aviv area this morning and also in various parts around the country. Today, we do not speak of any major hits or casualties. The missiles that were fired, at least to the Tel Aviv area, were cluster missiles, meaning that we did see minor impacts in various places, but with no considerable damage or casualties. This is opposed to yesterday when a missile made landfall here in the Tel Aviv area, creating quite a lot of damage. Regarding the attacks in Iran, what Israel is saying is that it will attack every site belonging to the Iran, where it's a Iranian nuclear program, ballistic program, other military installations. There was no direct comment from Israel regarding the possible attacks on that nuclear facility in Bushehr, which, as was just mentioned, is run jointly by Russian technicians as well. But Israel did say all along the way that it will hit any target belonging to any of the Iran's programs, be it the nuclear program, the ballistic program. And for Israel, it is loud and clear when it comes to the negotiation. Every agreement should include at least these 2 components: the complete end to the Iranian nuclear program, complete end to the ballistic program. What Israel is concerned is that the 3rd pillar, one speaking about assistance to the proxies, that may not be answered in the agreement, but until that happens, Israel is tackling and striking all of the sites in Iran, including those belonging to the Iranian nuclear program, understanding that an agreement, even though it looks quite far at the moment, could still happen at a time, especially when an unexpected President Trump, and therefore Israel is preparing for the possibility that the war may end soon, and therefore it is striking anything it can for the moment.
At least 9 people have been killed in overnight Israeli airstrikes on South Lebanon and Beirut suburbs. Lebanese state media is reporting that casualties have taken place across the south of the country, including Sidon. Southern Beirut has been targeted a number of times during this conflict and has been largely emptied of residents. China says it's trying to ease tensions in the Middle East. Those comments follow talks between the Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Iranian counterpart.
Hotspot issues should be resolved through dialogue and negotiation rather than using force. Talking is always better than fighting. China hopes all parties will seize every opportunity for peace as soon as possible.
Kanwal Silbal is former Foreign Secretary of India and former Indian ambassador to Turkey, Egypt, France and Russia.
It is a terrible situation that the world is in. India has been very badly hit because we have about 10 million people in this area. We get about 40%, 50% of our oil and gas from this region, and we get about 40 billion remittances from this region. Now, if the region gets disturbed because the conflict continues, then we will have a huge problem on our hands, even a bigger problem on our hands than we have at present. The shutting down or disruption of the Strait of Hormuz is affecting us, although our ships are being able to go through, but on a case-by-case basis, on a ship-by-ship basis. So the flow of oil and gas from this region has become problematic. Worse for us, the gas facility, the LNG facility in Qatar has been shut down. They have been force majeure, with the result that we have now to look for supplies from elsewhere. But I think the larger effect of this on the global economy, because it affects large parts of the global economy in terms of tourism, in terms of aviation, in terms of fertilizers, in terms of export, import, in terms of logistics. So frankly, this is a very bad situation.
You're an enormously experienced diplomat of so many years standing. Let's talk about the diplomacy. President Trump has alternated between threats and claims of productive talks. I mean, does this reflect coercive diplomacy or strategic inconsistency?
Both. He's not made any bones about the fact that he relishes doing coercive diplomacy. He has actually exercised that diplomacy towards us also by imposing earlier 50% tariffs on us, making us the most tariff country in the world, although India and United States have otherwise a very good relationship and a strategic partnership. He has forced us in the past to stop buying Iranian oil and then Russian oil. And he's exercised his coercive diplomacy vis-a-vis Europe, as you well know, vis-a-vis Great Britain. Currently, he's annoyed with you. But his strategic inconsistency, too, because he changes his narrative. Sometimes he demands one thing, at other times demands another thing. Look at, for example, Iran. Earlier, he said that he's not looking for a regime change, but then he said, yes, he has decapitated the leadership, and in effect, he has established a regime change. Then he said, in fact, he chided Israel for having attacked the South Pars oil gas field, and then he himself then threatened that he would attack the energy infrastructure of Iran. Then he said that, the United States doesn't need the Gulf for Hormuz, other countries do, therefore they should send in their warships and open the channel. And now he says that this must be opened, and he's willing to do X, Y, and Z to force it open. And in fact, he's threatening to send 4,000 or 5,000 Marines from the 81st Airborne Brigade to achieve that target. So there's a lot of strategic inconsistency. He said, I recognize the new Ayatollah, but then he says he and the Ayatollah are going to manage in the future the state arms. So one really does not know. But this is part of his art of the deal. Escalate to de-escalate, keep other parties on tenterhooks about what he may do, create chaos, and then say, I'm a peacemaker. Frankly, it's very, very difficult to understand the thinking and strategy of the US president.
Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has resigned after Denmark's general election. This formally sets coalition talks in motion after voters delivered no clear majority on Tuesday. She remains caretaker leader, with her Social Democrats still the largest party, but with no grouping able to govern alone. Our correspondent Evangelo Sipsas reports.
The votes are counted, the speeches are done. Now comes the difficult part. Mette Frederiksen came first, but this was no easy win. Her party, the Social Democrats, won 21.9% of the vote, giving them 38 seats, enough to stay the biggest party. But still, their worst result in over a century. The left fell short of a majority, the right fell short too.
I am disappointed. Of course I am disappointed that we did not get more votes. But there is nothing today that can stop me from being proud. The Social Democrats have once again become the Danes' clearly preferred political party.
So yes, she has resigned, but no, she is not out, because she still leads the biggest party. Frederiksen's name is still in the race to form a new government. But the problem is, nobody has the numbers to do it alone.
Well, it was a pretty muddy result, and we have a more fragmented parliament where there's none of the two traditional blocs that is able to form a majority, which puts the moderate party in the pivotal position. They will be the kingmakers.
And that is where this gets interesting. The moderates are back in the middle again, holding the balance of power.
Ending your policies, negotiating deals is part of Danish political culture. So in that sense, that's to be expected. It's more difficult with these very clear statements about whom they will and will not cooperate with.
That is the real challenge now. Parties can soften on policy, but it's much harder to back away from promises about who will not govern with whom. And that is why these talks can take time. Even so, Frederiksen is still right at the center of it, because despite the setback, there is still no obvious alternative with a simpler path to power.
She made some unpopular reforms that didn't pay back in terms of
consensus. What we can see now is that probably she will be the person tasked with trying to form a new government.
Mark has voted and the numbers are clear, but the outcome still is not. Mette Frederiksen may have resigned to start coalition process, but she remains very much in the game. And now the real contest shifts from the campaign trail to the negotiation table. Angelo Sipsas for CGTN, Copenhagen.
And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel on Telegram app, or scan this QR code on your screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.
CGTN roundtable discussion.
The competition technology, that's the future, is China.
We are in the southern Chinese city of Shenzhen on board an autonomous bus. This is a glimpse of the future unfolding here in one of China's most dynamic regions, the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area. I'm joined by 4 guests who will help us unpack the next chapter of China's development story. Now, we do have someone in the driver's seat, safe protocol. NEVs, or new energy vehicles, has been one of China's biggest growth stories. China produced, I think, 16 million NEVs last year, 68% of the global total. How has smart vehicles really transformed how people move in Shenzhen, and how does this inform policy decisions?
I think it's really a showcase for the fastest piece of the technology and innovation. More importantly, it's also show the people here in China are really kind of willing to adopt this new kind of technology.
And it's astonishing to me that how smooth it goes, it works. I think in very compact parking, some places it's performed better than me.
And you are founder of the company. What do you think makes this city such fertile ground for tech innovation?
I think Shenzhen is very open-minded. It has one of the most dense talent population. You can find the finest craftsmanship in here, in hardware, in software, in AI, all in one place.
From the perspective of Hong Kong Productivity Council, you've been helping entrepreneurs across the border, making their dreams come true. Really,
I think Hong Kong has this unique strength in terms of international connectivity. I think that is very important, especially for our entrepreneurs in Shenzhen. While we are expanding our business here in mainland, but then I think there's a great opportunity as we are bringing all these technology from Shenzhen to Hong Kong, commercialize it, and go international.
What stands out to me is the broader platform that we're operating in, the interconnectivity of not just Shanghai, Shenzhen, Hong Kong, but the Greater Bay as a whole. The density of the talent that is here and the speed with which the infrastructure has been established, that's quite remarkable and really quite unique in the world. And as we look to build our businesses, what you're looking for is some place that can transform itself quickly and adapt and adopt. There's no place like this.
It's not just a new district for Shenzhen, but it's also kind of a testing ground for reform, for opening up, particularly high innovation.
It's district of the future.
Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good to see you. Oh, that's a good move.
Okay.
Welcome to the CGTN Roundtable discussion. I'm reporter Huang Fei, and I'm joined by four distinguished guests. Mr. Qi Hongbin, Chief Economist of Shanghai Authority, Mr. Sunny Tan, Chairman of Hong Kong Productivity Council, or HKPC, Mr. Greg Smith, Chairman of Australian Chamber of Commerce in South China, and Mr. Aaron Qin Yoming, founder and CEO of Manifold Tech. Welcome you all. With the humanoid robots ushering in the smart economy, let's widen the lens a little bit. Let's look at China's 15th five-year plan. A lot of it is coming into focus now with priorities like future industries, domestic consumption, and deepen opening up. But at the same time, we've noticed that China has set its economic target to 4.5% to 5%. First such adjustment in 3 years. How confident should we be in China's economic outlook right now?
We all know that, like any other major economies, right now China also facing a bit of challenges. You look around the world, there is geopolitical risk is rising. Trade war now is completely the end. But having said that, I think China is also a domestic-oriented economy. In terms of as percentage of GDP, the 80% is still domestic demand. And also we start to see some kind of, particularly in the areas like the new industries, but even in some kind of the broader-based industry, we still see the manufacturing investments keep rising, despite of the uncertainties, despite of all those various kind of pressures. I expect China's economy is going to remain kind of the stable piece of growth. 4.5 to 5%, I think, is still going to be quite achievable for the for the next 12 months or so.
Interesting you said that because Greg, we've seen a lot of should we say doomsday headlines about China's economy. How do you read the 4.5 to 5% growth target? I mean, what kind of policy signal really does matter to you most?
I think that you'd be a very brave person to bet against the Chinese economy. It's been resilient over a long period and it's gone through some fairly strong headwinds and come out with still the flag waving. Taking some of the issues that you're talking about with tariffs and the geopolitics that's in place, there's resilience in the partnership is what all of the countries are looking for in their traders. So the stronger relationships that you have, I think that's going to really be the bedrock to making sure that we do hit the 4.5. And I think all the countries around the world are looking for trusted partners to be able to work and trade with.
And Sunny, from Hong Kong's point of view, how do you view this? I guess what's your key takeaway from this?
I would say that China has a very, very good number, achievable number. And I can see the big market by itself, the resilience, and also is really providing a certainty in the time of uncertainty. Our country can continue to grow as planned. At the same time, we can see very good interest from around the world who wants to be part of this growth and be wanting to be in China.
Yeah. And Aaron, as a business founder, what does this headline number mean to you?
For for market-wise, we still see there are opportunity in globalization. Even though there are a lot of geopolitical matters going on, but the uniqueness of the Greater Bay Area, I think, is still unmatched. Like the talents we can find here, the craftsmanship, the well-experienced engineer here is still unmatched. I think even though there's uncertainty around the world, the business has to grow globally. Anyone who can adapt this quickly can survive.
Yeah. And Aaron is founder of an AI company. AI was mentioned more than 50 times in the government work report delivered by Premier Li Qiang.
Right.
Why is China so focused on AI right now?
Well, I think the reason is very simple. There is a bit of competition among these major economies right now. Yeah, the competition is not just it's unlike all the Cold War area. Today we're talking about 21st century. The competition is really about technology. Fortunately, I think for China is that they will prepare for this due to long-term investment of the nationwide into the education. Over the last 20, 25 years, China has constantly invested heavily into the higher education. The number of the fresh graduates, I'll give you one number, 15 years ago is less than 2 million. What's the number last year? It's 12 million. More than all the US, German, Japan, India, Australia, all combined. We're talking about more than 50% of the Chinese university students, they are majored in what they call the STEM field. China has been prepared for this kind of technology upgrading, for decades, and then now it's just basically finally we're seeing some kind of the result.
So there's a top-down decision making. There's also grassroots ideas coming into national political discussions. And going back to the government work report, words innovation and reform appeared 75 times. Hong Kong is, of course, on the frontier of that. How does Hong Kong Productivity Council really help companies seize opportunities in this region?
HKPC, by our name, we try to boost productivity. So by now, we are talking about application of technology. So whether it will be in AI, AI plus, or in robotics, those are key examples. We are seeing a new generation of the industrial revolution. This is very, very immediate in front of us. So we are very eager in work with all our industries, whether it's a traditional industry or the emerging industry. We are trying to bring in our elements to really help them to break the bottleneck, to move them to the next level. And Hong Kong cannot do this alone. So all these, we need to work together along with the central government work report. We need to know that how do we make it competitive? Because when we say high quality growth really comes from the definition being a very competitive supply chain globally. No longer only we look at mainland, but global. So how do we function in Hong Kong, having the one country, two systems benefit in getting the mainland standard testing approach down to the international level? We call it internationalization. How do we bring that from a more domestic player, bring them into the global scale? I think it is coming and is inevitable.
Another thing that we keep seeing from the government work report is the terms called policy certainty and big nation advantage. In a world with a rising protectionism, what does certainty look like to Australian businesses operating in China?
That's a great question, because that really does form the basis upon which commerce can develop. The one thing that businesses don't like is uncertainty, and so the more that there is a framework that can be tracked into the future, and obviously 5 years is a good chunk of time. In our country, our political system runs on a 3 or 4 year cycle, so to be able to see that far out is good for companies to invest through. We're a great champion for free trade. We're a great champion for establishing those relationships that have that interconnectivity, and so we would really emphasise that as being the way forward. Our recent survey of companies that are based here in China, 85% of them were optimistic about the future. That's in difficult times. So we are here to try and make sure that we're here for long term.
85%. That's a significant number.
Right.
You know, in terms of long-term planning, it's very clear that companies with core technologies will benefit the most. If we talk about policy priorities in the next 5 years, you've got something with you today.
Actually brought one of our demo machine here today. This product I'm holding on a microphone. It's called a man-palace 3D scanning device. So it's got a LiDAR and camera sensor and edge computing devices embedded inside. So it's doing real-time 3D monitoring, 3D sensing, and it turns the world into a digital model instantly. So how all the industry can benefit from, I can take example from Australia, for example. We have a client in the city of Perth. Perth is a city with a lot of coal mines, where the workers will use this device to do quick scanning and measure how much coal they have already digged out. And also we have a client in Brisbane. They use this for forestry management. So back in the days, you have to count the trees manually. Right now, you can just do the scanning and go back home and use AI to analyze the distribution of the trees, the thickness of the trees, and everything is done with algorithm autonomously. In Hong Kong, we also help the drain pipe service department to digitalize their asset and track everything down to 6mm precision. And with the rise of AI and robotics, the importance of physical AI has become unmatched. In my opinion, I think the traditional software AI era has passed. It is surprising that the AI age shifts so fast that some of the state-of-the-art algorithm can be outdated in just a few months. The next generation, where the future AI and robotics is heading to, is definitely physical AI. So the robots cannot just do the regular like dancing and the regular program, the pre-programmed task. It has to understand the scene. It has to be acting spontaneously. So I think that's where our company is going to be focusing at, and that's where the technology is going to go as well.
Wow. Thanks for that analysis. And I guess, you know, from the national level, China is focusing on what's called AI Plus initiative, looking AI softwares into the real economy.
Right.
And I guess, from Hong Kong Productivity Council, you've been helping companies adopt AI and automation for years now. Where are companies still struggling in terms of adopting automation at this stage? And are there still hidden barriers in terms of working across the Hong Kong, Guangdong ecosystem?
Oh, definitely. I would say, especially for the more traditional industries, they are more looking at to their back office. It could be maybe search and automation, maybe it's the warehouse management. They have not been maximizing the benefit. For example, AI application can be done across a supply chain, because sometimes the benefit can really be reaped out if you're working with all your partners. But that requires your digitalization on the platform so that they can communicate. So that is one challenge that they are facing. And number two, I would say, and we are in Hong Kong working with mainland, working with the international market, the AI system itself, because the Western world has its own AI system, and then mainland has its own AI system. So how do we communicate? As we go global across, all these becomes issues that we are trying to tackle along with our customer. And different industry will have different answers. So it's very dynamic, and we try to apply as it goes. And as Aaron says, things just keep improving. The new version keeps coming in. So we are trying to adopt the latest as well.
If you look at the US, these big 7 companies, they put a massive amount of resources into big models. Yeah, they try to make the models bigger and also try to win everyone to win the number one. But instead, if you look at China, of course, China also have DeepSeek, all that. But even for the DeepSeek, the big model guys, they take a different approach. They try to make it more efficient, particularly more cost effective. Yeah. And broadly speaking, I mean, China, there's also a lot of more resources that is actually be put into the application of the AIs, how to make the AI works for for the industries, for the supply chains, as just mentioned, as well as for the the daily life. There are tens of thousands of companies like Arians currently doing. They try to make use the AI technology to turn into the real kind of the tools, either for the for the companies to use or for the for the consumers to use. This is a totally different process. What China's tried to basically emphasis on the application to make the AI more applicable to the every corner of life. Because if I'm an investor, I like to see my money put into something to turn the AI into something which is more useful.
Good.
In fact, when at HKPC, when we work with our clients, because they're business people, so it's really we are looking at the return on investment, and then how would AI save my costs? Right. How can AI generate more revenue for me? I don't need the most complicated one, most expensive one, but I need the most practical one. That's important. And then usually in the industry side, we also have the small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, and they are lacking the ability. So HKPC, as we call the Quango, we are trying to help them.
Footprint. The real leap forward is going to be when we do have these autonomous devices that are going to be able to support people to live longer, to live better, to be able to stay healthier and to maximize the life that they've got. And that is certainly something that we're very interested in. I think that the space that's going to be really interesting is how quickly the application of whichever is the model that wins, how quickly that application can be done by the SMEs, because that's where the generation of so many new ideas comes. It's the small entrepreneurs who are creating new things, testing it in the market and seeing how it goes. That's going to be a really interesting space for us to watch.
In terms of applications, we're also seeing AI being applied in low-altitude economy. Another future industries, another part of the future industries China is really focusing on for the next 5 years. And here in Shenzhen, we already operate hundreds of low-altitude flight routes simultaneously during peak hours. And we've heard lawmakers in Hong Kong this year is proposing using low-altitude aircraft to improve the movement of people across the border. How realistic is this idea, Sunny?
Hong Kong government has been very proactive in pushing into this area. And for HKPC, we are also a technical partner with such initiatives. What you see is not really the technology being the problem. I think technology pretty much has proven that it can be done, and it will continue to improve. It's more because of one country, two system that we need to go through the securities, the customs, and also many other maybe government regulations. That's why we need to bring it to the Legislative Council for the law changes amendment. But also it's really the procedures, working with different government departments, how we can make it more seamless as we integrate into the entire GBA. How can we move the people on the drone from Hong Kong to Shanghai or many other places in this region?
You know what's really amazing about this is that the low altitude environment is amplified by the fact that there's so many people in such a dense area here. But in Australia, we've got the opposite. We've got nobody for large amounts of space. So this is going to be one of those great places of complementarity, that there's two quite different ends of a polarity that we're going to be able to solve and create some new products together. And I think that's a really exciting space to be in.
In fact, for Hong Kong, we have that kind of balance too, because not only we're talking about the passenger side, but there's a lot of industrial use. For example, border control. Right. So, and certain of, say, firefighting. There's so many ways of application that we HKPC will be working with the government and also private sector through Sandbox. And we have already gone through 38 of them, and then we're extending into what we call the Sandbox, the extended version. So not only the passenger, but there's so much of the application that we are evaluating, having Hong Kong to be a test center, because we are an international hub. So whatever we are testing, we're trying to do, also not only fit for the mainland market, but also it could fit for the international market.
Over the last kind of 6 months, I'm fortunate enough to be involved in some of those kind of the real kind of the practical work to track even big push into through this low altitude kind of project. I mean, one of the things we try to push is basically to do some kind of the project for the cross-border of the low altitude activities. Apart from the do the passenger currently clearly the relatively easy thing to do is deliver the packages, deliver the goods. We already work with Shanghai authorities, already work with various government kind of department. Try to basically, as you said, try to coordinate, to make sure to open some kind of the channel on testing ground to allow this kind of cross-border kind of the delivery. Maybe sometime this year you're going to, if you're sitting in your office in Central, you can order your bubble teas from here, so to let the drone to deliver that. So it's going to be. I think there's a lot of potentials.
And we've got a couple of models here, eVTOLs. A small one here and a bigger one there. Right. Obviously, there's a huge market demand for that. Even flying across borders doesn't seem as remote as we imagine it to be. Especially in Guangdong, with the real-time population of 150 million people, this makes it one of China's most important consumer markets. And of course, domestic consumption is a top priority for the Chinese government. And we've seen in the past month, really, during the Spring Festival, tech products like small drones, consumer drones, and AI glasses were really flying off the shelves. Aaron, do you see your products potentially become mass consumer products?
Yes, definitely. Every entrepreneur, I think most of them are dreaming of pushing their product to the consumer level, because it's a much wider variety of market than the 2B model. But it takes time. The Rome isn't built in one day. So Manifold's first client actually was in Hong Kong. Manifold was founded during the pandemic in Hong Kong. And during that time, there's a huge old-fashioned restaurant called Tai Bai Seafood Restaurant. It's a restaurant on a boat, and it's a historic building, but it has been through 7 decades and needs reparation. So we use our 3D scanning device to do service for them and capture the whole relic for protection purposes. And then we found out the construction company needs the 3D digital twins for modeling, for documentation, and for government's compliances. And those become our second early adopters. Back in the days, the cost of every single clients are very high. Right now, we push our product into the massive production, and the price, the cost of our product actually dropped more than 90%. It's astonishing. But our number of clients actually grows 100 times more. So that's a good thing for the business. And we found a lot of new adopters, like small business owner, like interior designers. They are willing to use our device to scan their own house, even though they are oceans away from the main. They can order furnitures from the small manufacturers in Greater Bay Area and do online placement. We see a lot of new opportunity generated as the price of this technology decrease. In the future, we're gonna keep pushing the limit of our product and find more application potentials, and hopefully in one day we can push this kind of 3D data capturing technology easily available. It will be as easy as taking a picture with your phone. It will be very intuitive.
I mean, it's clear the technology has changed our shopping habits, our consumer patterns. And I wonder if you've noticed, Greg, in the past year or so, the term China maxing or China travel has been kind of trending on social media. This is mostly Gen Zs from all over the world really embracing Chinese culture, Chinese experience, Chinese technologies. What kind of opportunities do you see, for Australian companies as this trend kind of continues?
Yeah. The growth of social media connections and the increasing sophistication of the way that we capture our own experiences and move them out into the world could potentially take us down a road that we don't need to travel. We stay at home and still get the immersive experience. But I think at a human human level, we are still very much wanting to live in the 3D world ourselves. And so I would say that there is an enormous opportunity for us to be boosting the understanding of what experiences there are available through the increased use of technology and devices. But it is going to lead to an increase in the amount of travel. The interesting demographic change that I think will change is the move from group travel to individual travel, event travel, and that's something that Australian companies have done for a long time. Is the small group, the real value plus side of things, and it's a big part of why Chinese travellers have always enjoyed going to Australia, because there is so much space where you're by yourself. But the prospect of
some certainties, a couple of certainties. For instance, the most part of the economy is still pretty resilient. That basically given the space for the business side to continue to search for the business opportunities, either on the to B side or to C side, in spite of those kind of anti-globalization, tariff wars, trade wars, all that. But China still consistently try to open up the economy. The Chinese government, from central government all down to the local level, they still try to do their best to improve the business environment for foreign companies. For instance, the place I work with, my colleagues work day and night, try to basically to figure out how to improve the business environment for the foreign business. And in fact, we already see some kind of result feedback. For instance, last year, just in Shanghai, we had some kind of the FDI has been increased by more than kind of the 20% year on year. And then Shanghai, this is a relatively new area, but it accounts for more than 60% of the incremental FDIs for the whole city. It also accounts for more than one third for the whole province. Yeah, the local level governments even work harder for try to basically to improve the business environment. This is the certainty. So if for any business, it doesn't matter. Either you don't have to be like area in the frontier of this AI. Even if you're in the consumer business, as long as you see the government is still improve the business environment, as long as the most demand are still remain stable and resilient, I think that's basically good opportunities for the businesses going forward.
Yeah. And Aaron, you mentioned your company was financed during the pandemic, and now we're sitting in one of the incubation hubs here in Shenzhen. I wonder what kind of incentives really matters most for business founders like yourself, especially in uncertain times.
There are a lot of factors that decides whether companies succeed or not. We call it 天时地利人和. 天时 basically is timing. I'm very fortunate that like 10 years ago, I chose to study robotics and artificial intelligence. At that time, it was like it wasn't as hot as today. And the DD is more like geographical factors. In the Greater Bay Area, like I said, there are so many so many factories, manufacturers, providers available around like 30 minutes drive away from us. Back in the days when I was studying